I came into my field, and especially at first at the master's level and then at the PhD level. It was in composition and rhetoric and the teaching of writing. And at the time, which I really decided that this was the field that I wanted to kind of, make my career in, the scholarship that I was interested in, was in the mid 90s. And this was a time which labor discussions about staffing, about the size of composition classrooms, about adjunct labor, they were kind of all over our journals. Books were coming out. I remember going to one of our major conferences, the Four Cs, and Eileen Schell, who's up at Syracuse University now, led a discussion which has really had more a feel of a rally to get behind labor issues. I mean, this was just kind of the context of composition in the kind of late 80s into the mid 90s. And a lot of that had to do with our actually real concrete conditions. I mean, the fact is that at most, especially Research One institutions, but really across the board, community colleges to Research One institutions, more and more first-year writing classes were being taught by adjunct faculty, right? And that meant that the majority of classes that were being taught for the first-year writing, right, to students who were, coming in for the first time in college, were being taught by people who were getting paid like between $1,000 a class to like those very, very fortunate folks who were getting paid about $3,000 a class with no health benefits, with no job security, many cases piecing together jobs at multiple universities and other sites just to make ends meet. And it was, we couldn't survive really as a discipline, as a field, without addressing the questions of labor. So, again, that was for me phenomenal. I mean, these were part of the questions that I was interested in. What this got me to decide to study in this area. So I got some of my own experience in that too as well. When after I finished my coursework for my PhD and decided that I was going to move to DC for a little while to write my dissertation and so on, I was a part-time faculty member and adjunct at George Washington University, and I was very, very lucky to fall in with a group of folks in the English department there who had already started discussion about starting an organizing drive, which was no easy task because George Washington University was a private university, and case law up until that point did not allow for graduate teaching assistants to unionize at private universities. But we did it anyways, and so I became an active member of our organizing committee. I became, and then a paid organizer through the UAW once the UAW took over the campaign or helped assist in the campaign, and started doing some of the nitty-gritty work of going door to door and talking to other graduate teaching assistants and adjuncts about joining the union. And it was no easy task, and it was a real eye-opener to me about all the more reason why you need a union, about the fear that would be expressed by graduate teaching assistants and adjuncts just about talking about a union, about worrying that if their advisor found out that they could lose their funding. I mean, what kind of conditions are those from which study should take place or teaching should take place? So it was more of a motivating factor than anything else about all the more reason why you need a union. That I actually left GW before the campaign was done. They eventually switched to SCIU, and they did end up having a vote on it. They started another kind of union organizing campaign or so on. But so that was interesting. But I remember that being as the context when I finished my dissertation and started applying to jobs. I actually had the opportunity to go back and teach at George Washington University full time. And I got the job offer from Kutztown University at the same time. And frankly, when it came right down to it, I also had my conditions of work at GW. Yes, I would have had about half the teaching load. But the concerns about job security, about people being able to hold something over your head and negatively impact your career because they didn't like what you were doing for no rhyme nor reason, that was enough. And frankly, I had opportunity right before I was applying for jobs to work for the American Federation of Teachers in Washington, D.C., and was doing research on union contracts, particularly contracts related to temporary faculty and adjunct labor. And APSCUF's contract, the contract that we're covered under at Kutztown, was held up as the model. Right, so I got to know that contract very well before I even knew where Kutztown was. And when I got the offer at Kutztown, I came to the place and met people here, and got to see that union contract all over again. I couldn't think of another place I'd rather be. I mean, it's true that I love the students here. I work in a fantastic department, but that union contract made me come here to Pennsylvania, that I knew were a place where I knew nothing about, and leave Washington D.C. To be here to be part of this union. And I am so pleased I made the choice. For all the difficulties that we face as academics, as teachers, struggling to make our way, to know that there is at least some document that we can go back to that protects what we do, not just in word, but in deed and action, that is so valuable that you cannot measure it in the amounts of, say, benefits that you can get or so on. The fact that not only do I have academic freedom as a principle that we all love in academia, but I can point to the article in my contract that says your academic freedom is protected in this contract by law. So join a union.